Hello and welcome to Khyber Shards.
Yes! Got it in one!
Don't work through that.
The number disappeared from my screen entirely. I thought that it just skips the rest of the countdown.
Yes!
All right.
Oh, that's neat.
Hello and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign setting. I'm Philip, the Dungeon Master.
I'm Eric.
I'm Colin. I'm R.A.
And I'm Casey.
And guys, what happened last time?
I pulled a dude up onto our airship. That's what's important.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Let us not forget.
From our perspective, we were betrayed, sold out on a death march to be killed with the dissolution, yeah, of the program that we were part of, the Blackwheel program, given the end of the last war. And thanks to the heroics of Thora, Tavine, and Dane, and Shade panicking in a moment, and Thunder waving the two guards behind us, we were able to escape. So, yeah.
You're just gonna leave out me flying the airship. You just
Only the important things.
with my 0 decks.
You did. You flew that airship so to the ground.
That crash landing was
I mean,
so
straight
good.
to it.
Yeah?
You
Fast as
crashed so accurately.
Yeah, I mean, you successfully landed a crashing air skiff. So, yeah, I'd say that was pretty good.
Yeah.
You're basically the Sully of Eberron. So, good job.
But then
I'm a big blue monster.
yeah.
That's the one. Yep. Boy, I'm glad you're topical.
And we kind of left off with Dane giving us his war commendations to where we could buy supplies to hit the road. Mm-hmm. And that's where we left off.
Excellent. So, for this next bit, I think what we need to do is figure out where do you go from there and talk a bit about life on the road. So Karnath is, you guys have, off camera picked a destination already and decided to make a run for Stormreach. But that is a really, really long trip. Karnath is on the northern end of the continent of Corvair, and Zendrick, where Stormreach is south of that continent. So you have a long trip to get to a port from which you can, with relative ease, go to Karnath, or go to Stormreach. So you are on the road for a long time. Is what I want you to get here. Is that the trip is not a short one. So the time between Korth and Stormreach is probably months of your lives before you are safely arrived in Stormreach. So I asked each of you to come up with some kind of trouble that you get into on the road, to sort of talk about what the journey was like, and to pitch at least, and we can sort of talk this through as players and perhaps even a little bit in character, how the group gets you out of that trouble. Because one of the main things that we want to try to get established in this story is why don't you all just scatter? Like, why don't you just sort of scatter to the winds, and everybody goes their own separate way? What are some of the things that start to make you think, yeah, okay, this group is worth hanging on to in some capacity? So, does anyone want to go first with what they came up with for the trouble on the road? Yeah, Ra.
Yeah, well, mine's fairly mundane, so it's probably good to start with. Given our condition, both visual, our appearance, and our other condition that we all have, we just find it very difficult, especially in the boonies, as we go from place to place, to find accommodation in any sort of civilized way. Inns are not terribly interested in playing host to us.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you think that situation? How do you guys think that situation gets, or not necessarily resolved? I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be. We come up with a story by which you are able to obtain to manage at inns, but since that's the case, since you all look like runaways, you have a little bit of wealth, but not in currency form, really. You could probably pawn those, but not necessarily for the value of the metal that's in them. So you're kind of working on barter and what you can manage. So how do you guys survive? Let's just start with a basic question. How do you guys eat? How do you guys find places to sleep?
Quick question,
Sure.
just because I don't recall. Where is everybody's mark physically located? Just so I have it up here, and
Sure.
also I can write it down. Wogs is on the side of
Side of his head.
but you can cover it up with your hair.
Yeah. The hair can kind of pull down over it.
Okay.
We actually haven't, I think, said this for Esri yet. So, world first, exclusive here.
World
But his mark is actually, I don't know if I can split between
Okay.
his palms.
Awesome.
So it is on both palms.
Like
Kind
a
of
wide
connected
receiver's
where he put-
gloves. Yeah, the pattern that goes between the two. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, aberrant.
Make a note to buy Esri gloves.
Right. And Shades is on her shoulder. So it's upper arm, but also up onto the top of her shoulder as well.
So all of them are reasonably easily concealable. I mean, Ari grew up on the road. And so Ari, but the caveat being, Ari has a -1 in survival. So it's not living off the land type of on the road. It's going from civilization to civilization. So yeah, he has kind of a hard time making contact with people, and he figured that given all the time that him and his clan spent traveling, that he might, have an innkeeper here and there that might remember him and be willing to, look the other way. But it's just not working out that way. Like anybody that seems to remember Ari as a part of his clan doesn't seem to have like the highest opinion of him, years of a misspent youth and that kind of thing. So yeah, that Ari's trying to help and getting increasingly frustrated at his inability to, because this is kind of his shtick, is growing up on the road. So the best that Ari could attempt to do is offer to like perform at inns to get us lodging. That's how he's operated in the past, but that would draw attention. And given that a lot of these inns are presumably on the Galanda registry, Probably not safe to stay in house-sponsored establishments either.
Probably not.
Lore question. What does that mean?
So House Galanda is one of the dragon marked houses, and they have the mark of hospitality. And their business, they're a halfling house, and their business is hospitality. Their main business is called the Golden Dragon, and it is the Holiday Inn Express of Eberron. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's cheap. It's the standard inn. So you go there. It is inexpensive, and you can get a room and a meal. Like most of the houses, Galanda maintains a pseudo monopoly on the business, not by driving everyone out, but by forcing them to pay essentially a licensing fee, which they pitch as upholding standards, that sort of thing. They pitch it as sort of a regulatory idea, but it's really just to make sure that no one can undercut them.
So they're franchised.
Essentially, yeah. And if you want to make it as an innkeeper in a town of any size, then you pay what really amounts to a very odd form of protection money to House Galanda.
Protection money from health inspectors, basically.
Yeah.
Well, for once, Esri is actually quite useful. This isn't, depending on where we are, it's not always the kind of nature that he is most closely connected to, but he is much more capable without society around him to find some food, to find some places to sleep, I mean, if we're talking mechanically again, I've got a +3 in survival. So he's good at the nature survival-y thing to an extent. He's not gonna make your life very comfortable, but we can get by.
Mm-hmm.
And Wog in a similar boat, mechanically also being +3. You've got a couple of not quite Eagle Scouts. So when we come to an inn and work is needed, the strength being where it is, I can handle some stable work. I can handle the loading and unloading of barrels as needed in and out of the inns. But while we are out and about, RA and I can split responsibilities between setting up camp, finding some berries that won't kill us, maybe trapping some small animals that are dumber than I.
We're
Literally
splitting that
everything
3
you
ways.
said sounds like things you're doing. I'm growing mushrooms.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's actually what I'm doing in real life when we get off of here. I'm staying in the backyard tonight. I think it'll be fun.
Shade is quick to suggest anything other than an inn. She is quite content to and prefers to sleep outside, and she also has very good survival. So she is much happier outside than she would be at the inn. If everybody else needs us to do things to earn money to the inn, that's fine.
Yeah, and Ari's...
So basically, those of us with survival are just carrying Ari on a stretcher by the end of the 3rd week.
Listen.
We're just dragging him along behind us.
Ari is more than capable of
He's
surviving on
pointing
the
out-
road.
He's pointing out every inn that we pass.
What about that one?
Bet they've got beds.
No, it's one of those things where like Ari grew up on the road and like had to like sleep on the side of the road multiple times, but it was never without resources. Like he never had to forage for food because we could stop at the town and buy supplies. And so that's the element that Ari isn't used to, but like sleeping in a tent, sure, whatever. So Or at least you couldn't tell it bothered him because he has a +6 in deception. So
I have a negative.
Hey, I got a
one
+5 in
intelligence,
insight.
so
Bring it.
I'm with it.
Every night, as camp falls silent, Esri speaks into the other members' minds one at a time. Says, "Good night, Walk. Good night, Walk.
Good night, Ezri.
Good night, Ari."
and once again, telepathically
Ari.
in response, "Good night, Esri."
Yeah. Actually, so I learned that when I do this, I can, if I spend an action, I can give the person the ability to respond telepathically within
Okay.
10 feet. So,
Nice.
good night, Shade.
Good night.
Okay. All right. So among you, you have the skills to sort of rough it along the way, beg help perhaps through Ari's gifts when necessary, but you can sort of make it. It's a hard road. There's really only one way to go. If you go south from Karnath, just straight south from Karnath, especially from Korth, where you were, you end up either in the Mornland, which is really just very bad. That's sort of nuclear wasteland, or walking across the Talenta Plains,
Oh no!
which are infested by dinosaurs.
Please.
So
Please.
unless that's what you're doing, and again, even then, beyond that, like to find a port of call to get to Stormreach, you'd have to then cross the mountains and go through the rainforest of Kabara, or walk across Valinar, where a whole bunch of war-crazed elves will look for opportunities to battle you. So probably what you have to do is catch a boat. Probably what you have to do is catch a vessel down. There's a large body of water that sort of runs partway down into the center of Corvair called Scion Sound. And you can make your way pretty far south on that and stop off in Thrain, and then make your way down to the coast, probably near Sharn, where you would get in Brayland, where you would get a vessel across the Thunder Sea. So it's a lot, and there would be a lot of time, in the open if you're not primarily making your way from town to town. So yeah, you are slowly. It's a very slow journey, not able to use any of the conveniences of the world, but you get there. It's rough. You're dirty. You've probably worn through a couple pairs of shoes, but you have the skills. So what's another trouble we encounter as we are going?
I think Shades
Okay.
ties nicely into the ones that we've been discussing, but she, one evening when we are camping outside, which is where she feels most comfortable, she would in the middle of the night start packing up her stuff. And she would not do it as quietly as she could, but she would be packing up her stuff and sort of planning to run away. You talked about this group, why don't they disband? And she would probably try to leave. Not probably. I get to decide. She's my character. She.
So what happens that talks Shade out of it? What who wakes up, I guess, is the question. Is who wakes up in the middle of the night? What's the conversation like that stops Shade running?
I mean, I have something if nobody else wants to hop in. So as Shade is packing stuff up, just suddenly and almost with a start, Ari plumps down into the grass next to her and just kind of sits and doesn't really look at Shade and says, "Now listen, I knew that we agreed to get an early start hitting the road, but I feel like this is ridiculous. I haven't even had my towel yet," which is a halfling equivalent of tea. I know people are more early risers than others, but I feel like Wog and Esri still need to get their beauty sleep. And Ari kind of chuckles. I don't know how Shade is responding to this.
Shade is continuing to pack her stuff. She slows down as you sit down, but she very intentionally does not turn to you when you start talking.
Okay.
She does chuckle at the idea of them needing their beauty sleep.
Ari, feeling encouraged by the chuckle, continues and says, "Tell you what, if we make a deal that we get a few more hours rest, at least wait until the sun starts kissing the horizon a little bit, I'll make breakfast in the morning. We got some oats in the last town, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but my mother's oatmeal is enough to make a Droam troll cry with how delicious it is. And I have the recipe. She taught it to me. And I'll make some for all of us if you will please just stop loading up and lay down and let us get some more sleep, because I get cranky when I don't get enough sleep. And I think that you would really like my mom's recipe."
She does stop, and she does take a beat to respond. I would love to try your mom's recipe, but for how long? I mean, are we... What if we're not in the situation and you just... What if I can't help?
Well, first off, plenty of times that you've helped. I think your assistance to this group is what kind of kicked off our survival, in fact. But I do know one thing. I know the roads in these parts pretty well. From when I decided to pack up my things in the middle of the night and leave my Nos, my clan. And only one thing I know is true. Traveling alone is exponentially harder, scarier, and more dangerous than traveling with folk that you know have your back. And there are days where I would give anything to go back and kick that young 16-year-old upside the head as he was rolling up his sleeping pad and tell him how good he has it. And the reason for that is that we all help where we can. I can't find a berry to save my life. I can barely find my shoe in the morning. I can't help people eat on the road. But I'm still here. Because we need each other.
You have my back. Can Shade roll insight on this?
Sure.
Because she would be suspicious.
Can Ari roll deception?
Ari can roll a die and give me either persuasion or deception according to whether he's planning to murder Shade.
Oh, she's going to get the new character before any of us.
She rolls a 12 for insight.
24 on persuasion.
Okay, so I would say he seems he comes
maybe
across
deception.
or maybe he comes across very genuine,
That's
very sincere. He comes across very sincere.
I believe you. I have your back too,
I know you do.
even though sometimes I knock you on it. But that's. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I can't always control it, and I'm not trying to hurt you, I promise, and I don't want.
I know. Listen. It happens. Wog hit me on the backswing one time with one of his weapons. Don't see me crying
I
about
would
it
not want to be receiving that.
anymore. I did
might.
cry in the moment because it hurt like hell. But no, I mean, Shade, you knocked me on my backside plenty of times, but you're always there to give me a hand to pick me back up. And that's what's important. We're always going to have moments where we slip up, maybe let each other down a little bit, but it's what you do afterwards that counts. If you're still there after you know you've messed up. And none of us would be here without you. As far as I reckon, Soren would have stabbed me in the gut if you hadn't turned around and done what you did. So, as far as I'm concerned, you're stuck with me because I owe you my life, and I'm not one to leave somebody with that debt unpaid. So, if you want to pack up and go, where are we going? But I figure it's better to stay here with these two because they owe you their lives also.
But let's just say that you did owe me your life, and I don't think that you did. I don't. No, that's not. I don't. But if you pay back the debt, or do you leave? If it's paid, is it done? Is that like? Are we under contract, and then this is only for that amount of time?
And I think probably this is waking Wog and Esri as Shade becomes animated.
She is starting
Yeah.
to escalate.
Philip, I've got a passive perception of 15. Would that be enough for me to have woken up?
Oh, certainly.
Earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I meant that. I think this is probably waking Wog and Esri as the conversation.
Right, no, I meant earlier, so I could have
Oh,
heard
sure.
some
Yeah,
of it.
that's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say Wog sleeps on his pack as a pillow, and after the start of this conversation, having heard that there was intention of Shade leaving, kind of set his hand and was prepared to just grab it and get up, and has been passively listening to this conversation in preparation of we're going. If they're going, I'm going.
Okay.
No, we're not under contract, Shade. It's not a 1-for-1 because I owe you my life. Then if I save your life, you owe me your life. And we're not even. We're never even. So we're stuck together. That's the way I see it.
Wog rolls to the
Listen,
side.
you two cave trolls may not understand the concept of beauty rest, but some of us have other talents to take care of.
And Ari just smirks and looks at Shade and said, I told you. Sorry, Wog was going to do something, and I feel like I cut you off, Colin.
Nope, it's all good. It's all good. I already got it.
Shade does roll her eyes at Esri. And turns back to Ari and goes, okay, we'll try this. We'll keep trying this.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll keep trying
Wog
this.
lets go and puts his arms back.
All right. Well, I'm going to make some oatmeal.
Yeah, you got to get up crazy early to make oatmeal from scratch. You gotta plan.
You're
You gotta
welcome.
plan that the night before, man.
Philip, why is oatmeal like a baked potato for you, dude? I can have it done in 90 seconds. This dude with a silly hat really has the thing figured out.
Colin, we're going to have to introduce you to the wonder of steel cut oats. Because I can tell you don't know.
I'm aware of them, but I'm also pressed for time.
All right. So, I want to pitch a setting for that. I think this is probably while you're on your way through Thrain. Because I think if there's any place that Shade has heard about that would trigger her flight response, it's probably Thrain. Thrain is a theocracy that's ruled by the Church of the Silver Flame, who were the leading force, or part of the church was, but that nuance is probably lost on Shade, given all the things, who were the driving force behind what's referred to sometimes as the Silver Crusade and other times as the lycanthropic purge, which resulted in a lot of shifter deaths. So, yeah, I think the experience of having to cross a bit of Thrain is probably pretty alarming to Shade if she's. I mean, I know Shade has not grown up in a shifter culture exactly, but this is something you would have heard of.
It's pretty recent history.
Yeah,
It's like
only about
100 years
century
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot. That sounds like a great suggestion.
All right. So having avoided that, you guys continue to make your way south, crossing eventually into Brayland and beginning to cross the weather getting noticeably warmer. Karnath is very much it's a northern climate. It's got a sort of northern European climate to it. Whereas Brayland, as you get south in Brayland, you start to encounter rainforest and a much more tropical, equatorial sort of region. So it's been getting probably downright hot for some of you, depending on probably certainly for Shade. This is probably as far south as Shade has ever been. Whereas for Esri, we're back in Esri's home country, and so it's probably a relief to not be in the frigid north anymore.
Mildew grows way better here.
That's true. It's a much more
Gross.
moist climate. So we've got Ari and Wog left. What's the next trouble? I know Ari. I think Eric said you had an idea for getting across the Thunder Sea as part of the problem. So what's Wog thinking?
Right before we arrive, one of the later stages of having crossed over, right as we start to get comfortable having resolved our issues after Shade having resolved her issue, rather, and us finally having a bit of cohesion with our success at surviving, we are set upon by bandits that we were not prepared for. Rather uneventful, because we don't have much. And that frustration led to the altercation, which left us pretty rough shape. Everyone a little battered and bruised, and having to deal with the added difficulty now of we couldn't go to the inns, and now we can't go seek any medical aid either. And so our survival requirements now require us all to nurse ourselves and each other. Nobody severely incapacitated or permanently mutilated through this, but nobody got out unscathed, some of us a little more battered than the other. But that was what set our welcome into this new area of the world.
Okay. So what solutions are we equipped for with needing some old-fashioned healing, or needing some medical care and being unable to seek it from House Jarasco, because don't you know it, all the hospitals are also run by a dragon-marked house.
Yep.
Allow me to introduce you to Magic Stick
Hi, Magic Stick.
and its magic mushrooms.
We've met.
Magic mushrooms. Tell us about Esri's magic mushrooms.
I feel like we're just going to have a relaxed afternoon and not actually be healed the way this is headed.
Just thinking about that scene in Young Guns where they have, you see the size of that chicken?
I am flavoring the Goodberry spell
Nice.
to be the same mushrooms that I gave Dane. Yes, and the same sort of thing. I can produce some embetterment mushrooms from my stick.
One thing that Ari can actually contribute in traveling in this situation is he, after the altercation, takes everyone to a nearby body of water that they can find and shows everybody the techniques that he's learned about stone washing clothes in a river, because if your clothes are dirty, you get an infection. That bad news. So everybody clean your clothes.
But he learns to do their own laundry.
Yes.
Shade is immediately pointing out the complications of now predators can smell you more easily, and you're not blending in to the environment quite as nicely. And I mean, if you want to make those choices, then that's up to you.
Oh, you mean being clean? When you first
Yeah.
started that, I was thinking blood, but then, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I'm
No,
so sorry.
that's-
Yes, Shade.
No, but see, if you take
Shade is
this,
concerned about cleanliness. As a
Cleanliness is
negative
dangerous, man.
aspect.
if you take
Right.
these kind of purple flowers and rub it on it, then you smell like flowery nature, and it's really pleasing. So
Esri
we
will
just
give
here
a
for the
courtesy
invention of detergent?
splash.
Courtesy splash.
ugh.
Awesome.
What was that, Colin?
I think we were just here for the invention of laundry detergent or dryer sheets. We don't need to worry about money. Ari's got us from here on out.
Anti-static sheets.
So it is a battered and road-weary group that arrives on the coast. Now, the southern coast of Corvair has only a few good ports, and the only one available to you easily is Sharn. But this is not a little thing, because Sharn is the largest city in Corvair. It is an entirely vertical city, towers rising thousands and thousands of feet into the air, so that when you are walking along the streets, unless you are in the upper levels of the city, you cannot see the sun. The city literally seems to sort of close in. And so you are, dirty, road-worn, battered, as you make your way into Sharn, and probably have to barter a good bit of whatever wealth you have left into passage. And it's probably cheap passage. So and you're probably ending up on just a standard old-fashioned sailing ship without any of your fancy enchantments or lighter than air woods or elemental power sources. Just an old sailing ship. Which means that you are looking at about a month at sea to get from Corvair to Zendrick. So a very long voyage after a very long walk. But on the other hand, you don't have to walk the rest of the way, which is probably a little nice. So a real quick, just for fun question. How's everyone at sea? How does everyone's character handle the sea?
We're going to find out, and it's not going to be fun. Sidebar, I apologize if you guys hear the purring that's going on next to me. It's very loud in my headset.
Oh.
He's super happy.
Ari is awful at sea. He's never been at sea before, for one. Like, he's been on riverboats, but never like this. And I think as soon as the horizon behind us disappears, Ari normally has a very kind of bronze tawny complexion, and it just starts to go full white as he just like realizes that the road's not beneath his feet anymore, and there's no land in sight, and if anything happens, we're just gonna die. And so Ari's not good.
The
Wog is just against it from the moment we realize that's what it has to be. There's no desire. If Ari can't do it, Wog does not think he can. That fully committed to we can walk anywhere we need to get to. There's just no need to go somewhere that requires this.
Esri?
the sea is not a problem for Esri. He actually is surprisingly well constituted. He's not very strong, but he can endure, and that from practice. But much like fighting automatons, this is not a good environment for him and his talents. There is very little for him to draw upon, and he doesn't like feeling trapped. Mm-hmm. So he is not physically ill, but he doesn't like it.
And what about...
And is a very annoying snot about it.
I'm going to complain the entire time.
What a miserable group. Jade is also not having it. She's the most comfortable in a forest with lots of trees, and that's what she associates, and that's what nature is to her. And a bunch of dead trees in the middle of open water is just an abomination. Like, this is... She hates this so much.
What a way to view it.
Yeah, if ever there were a time for no termites or advanced decay, the boat is, not it.
Yeah. Really don't want that. On the other hand, being just a standard sailing ship, there probably are quite a lot of vermin. So
we're eating better. I'll tell you that.
I had the same thought.
Shiprat cooks up good.
All right, Eric, tell us what trouble you have thought of for the voyage.
It just literally just now changed because I had a different idea that I think I want to see how everyone responds to getting Ari out of trouble of his own invention. So presumably there's it's a fairly full ship that we're on.
Sure.
I would guess and so
you can say so if it serves the story.
Yeah. Yes. So we are not the only passengers getting cheap passage or nice passage. And in fact, there's housing for not super rich people because they would take an airship, but
sure.
Better off than us. And
everyone else.
So after the first week of being truly gone from the horizon, you all notice that Ari has begun distracting himself by being social with people. That's his thing. Gets out his instruments, plays for people, talks, all kinds of stuff. And that's just how he's trying to maintain focus away from, oh God, we're gonna die. And so So one day, when you all are up at the up on deck, I'm establishing where the scene is taking place. You all begin to hear shouting, and you see one of the cabin doors for one of the, like, nice-ish housing come flying open, and you see a very grumpy-looking dwarf with a long sword pointed at Ari's throat, like up at his throat. Ari is in his underwear, and he's just like, listen, I didn't know. Not my fault. And it's clear that Ari got into some trouble that he shouldn't have gotten into. So, and there's a very grumpy dwarf.
So Ari is threatened at sword point. What solutions does the group come up with to this? I mean, obviously you don't murder anyone on the ship, because that's not going to go well. So how is it that the group manages to?
You say obviously.
Well, you make it to the
like
other,
there's
you make
a
it to the other
discussion
end
to
of
be
the
had.
of the journey. So
Well, we don't need the other people
How do we
for
feel
that.
about
We have a pilot.
piracy.
pirates? What do you call it? Mutiny.
So how does the group resolve Ari's foolishness?
And he sees you all over there, and he just kind of gives a wave like, hey.
Wog was standing, leaning against a railing, turns and sees this happening, and Ari is kind of pointed away from him, and Wog walks over, completely ignoring the situation of the sword, to look into the room and see what was happening that he got in trouble for, and just goes, oh. Oh. That's the end.
Then you just walk away.
allowing the rest. He's allowing the rest. Yeah. You did this
We
one.
have our first walk away.
You did this one. Goes to the vendor and buys popcorn.
Esri is just gonna walk up and Mr. Smith, you've you've wandered off without your pants again. And just sort of grab him around the shoulders and just sort of kind of turn him away from the sword and kind of just try to redirect the dwarf.
Okay.
Just sort of before he realizes what's happening.
There, yeah, it does buy you a beat. Like there is a beat at which the dwarf is like, "Wait, what?"
During that beat, Wog walks over and sets his hand on his shoulder and says, every day with him.
We're really sorry about him. He's been on the boat for as long as everyone else. He just isn't handling it very well.
Ari, trying to pick up on what he thinks they're trying to do, goes, Was that not my room? What? Where am I?
We'll take care of this, sir. I apologize for his mistake here. You won't see him again, I assure you.
How do you feel about the slightly used medals of valor of former war heroes?
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
You hear in your head, Esri, Ari going, I need my clothes. I left my clothes in there. It like telepathically, like.
And I will respond. Those clothes are dead to you. Go away.
That's my favorite shirt. I love that shirt.
Not anymore. It isn't.
Was your favorite shirt?
I want to know what Shade's response to all of this is.
How
I
is
would love to
Shade
hear.
handling this scenario?
Shade is in no way in the middle of this. She followed Wog. I don't know that Wog saw her, but when he went over to get popcorn, when he set it down to continue, she picked it up and she like moved it further in the corner. Like, this is a lovely snack. Ari got him into this. I wonder what happens. Like,
Some people.
if it, yeah, I mean, she would continue watching if it looks like it's going to get more dangerous.
Right.
Then she might step in, but he can handle himself.
Yeah, with the clever intervention, the wise intervention of your companions, and some delightful role playing, and the expenditure of pretty much what you've got left in please shut up money, and the loss of Ari's favorite clothes.
Love that shirt.
I mean, you got to wonder how many other clothes does Ari have, and the answer is probably not a large number.
You're going to have to endure me in topless for the rest of this trip unless I get that shirt
To
back.
retcon, Ari's shirts were the only things that the bandits cared about when they set upon us.
Ari arrives in Stormreach in a poncho made by cutting a hole in a blanket.
Ari is wearing one of Wog's shirts for the rest of the time, and it just looks like your uncle's sleeping shirt. That's all it is.
I was picturing the opposite. It's one of shades, and it's just a little too tight.
Like
an Ezekiel Elliott warm-up shirt. It's just
I
just
appreciate
to the
the
rib
sentiment,
cage.
but I'm pretty sure Esri and I are the same size. Esri, do you got anything extra?
He's not
Well, I
going to
didn't
let you
hear
wear
him
any.
offering, did I?
Right.
Question is, what's living on all of Esri's clothes?
Yeah, the smell will be enough to discourage.
Esri has had some former contacts in Shard, having survived on the street there. So he is going to lead Ari back to. I don't know if we have a cabin or are we just in like
You
steerage.
probably got a little cabin, we'll say, just for convenience here.
Back to the cabin and pull out some of the just cast off supplies he was able to put together from former friends, and start tossing them to Ari. Say, are you a terribly good swimmer?
In short bursts, but endurance is not my strong suit.
Yeah. Does this little group we've put together here seem like the dive in the ocean after you type?
I mean, Wog seems pretty ride or die, but the rest of you, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Listen, I didn't know. She
This
didn't mention
is-
it. Listen, I'm being genuine with you that I didn't know that I was going to have a dwarf walking in there pulling a sword on me. She was nice. She didn't mention nothing. So, yeah.
This is not how we survive.
It's how I survive, friendo.
Friendo?
No, it's canon. You got to call people friendo from now on.
Where that just happened.
Listen, I hear what you're saying. I'll dial it back. You're right.
Dial it off.
As they end their conversation.
And keep it on.
As they end their conversation, Wog walks over to Ari and goes, "How? Please
All
teach
right.
me."
All right, buddy. We'll talk.
Oh, man. All right. So you survive. It is a slightly poorer group that arrives. So as you approach Stormreach, so a month of voyage, you are advised a couple of days out. You're sort of warned that it is best from this point on in the voyage to keep close to your cabins. Because as you begin to near land, and and probably still out of sight of land. But as you are informed that you're getting near, looking forward, you see just sheer spikes jutting up out of the sea. Not like coral reefs or like islands or anything like that, but just spikes that glitter in the sun. And as you pass near them, you can see that the ship is very carefully threading a course. And occasionally you see buoys in the water. And in fact, the ship slows to the point, at one point, once you're in and among these things, that they put down a rowboat that rows out ahead and seems to be checking the buoys. And as you draw sort of close to some of these things, what you can see is you're looking at a sort of very, very deep, yellowy green spike that is slightly translucent. And asking, because there's no reason any of you would have encountered this. Maybe some of you, maybe Esri or possibly Ari have heard traveler stories, but asking people, you're told that this stuff is referred to locally as demon glass, and that you are among Shargon's teeth, which is this run of horrible spikes that ships have to pass through. And the reason for the rowboat is that the buoys are laid out to mark the safe path, but sometimes the Sahuagin move them.
The who now?
So Sahuagin are aquatic humanoids that are they're sort of amphibious. They can survive a while on land. No two really look alike. They have a variety of arm numbers and come in a variety of sizes and colors. They all have sort of rows upon rows of shark-like teeth. If you sort of imagine a humanoid anglerfish without the antenna dongle,
And now live the rest of your life knowing that thing could exist.
You described that with a level of calm that is so upsetting to me. I have known you for most of my life, and I don't recognize you in this moment. Here, Colin, have a nightmare. My God.
I've seen Shape of Water. It's fine.
It's not. It's not. It's not.
and asking more, as it becomes clear that some of you at least are unaware of these creatures. You're made aware by the traveler, who seems to be the talkative type, that there's actually just a whole civilization of them under the Thunder Sea. Like they rule the Thunder Sea from their underwater cities, and sometimes they move the buoys to try and lure ships into the teeth in order to get the passengers. And Sahuagin really, they have this very, very interesting religion where they worship this, they call it Shargon. It's definitely the Devourer, which is one of the darker gods of Eberron. And the only proper way to honor a defeated foe is to eat them so as to consume their strength.
Ari vomits over the
can
side
see
of the
that.
ship.
Ezra says, I can see that. When you say that, the person who's clearly been really enjoying telling the newbies this story, when Ezra makes that comment, he sort of goes, so anyway, I left something in my cabin, and departs.
Wog starts thumping his head gently against the banister, because if he would have known any of this, he would not have agreed to this stupid trip in this stupid dead tree box.
However,
Deeply unhappy.
you pass the teeth unhindered. Once through the teeth and into the bay, you can finally see land. And your ship rounds a promontory and begins to move into a natural harbor. And any excitement you felt about the sighting of land is suddenly taken right out of you, because it's in ruins. It's been obliterated. It's utterly destroyed. Some sort of horrible cataclysm has happened here. And then the ship gets closer and you realize that the scale is wrong. It is ruins, but the ruins are massive. And the buildings are huddled in the shadow of the ruins. And very slowly, the ship begins to pull into the harbor of Stormreach, which I can't put into the stream, but for you guys' reference, what you're looking at is this vast city that mounts higher and higher as you go back from the harbor. You can see the carvings of giants. You can see buildings that are clearly made of wrecked ships. You can see that some of the ruins are actually floating above the city. And all over the place, rope nets and ladders and bridges have been strung between gaps in ruins and from the floating rubble, so that the whole city has this just deeply bizarre, scavenged feel to it. But you have safely reached Stormreach at last.
Huzzah.
And that was about 18 months ago. So, in
What's
that
a
time,
twist?
in that time, you all have. So you've arrived penniless in a city. You cannot afford to go home. Even if you had somewhere to go, you couldn't afford to go back. You're stuck here. There is nowhere else here to go except out into the jungle, which reputation suggests is not a good place to live. At least if one enjoys being alive for a long time. And so you all have had to manage some kind of living space. And given the circumstance you find yourself in, you would have had to get help managing your living space. So, you're almost certainly in one of the poorer parts of town. Down on the south side of town near the jungle, there's the neighborhood of Southwatch, and then in the middle of the city, there's the neighborhood of Cross, which these two districts are the really, really poor parts of town and have their own character, which I introduced you to in the stuff I sent you guys. So the first question is, where do you guys think you end up living? Cross is a very, very poor part of town. It's a lot of expatriates from Corvair, like yourselves, mostly from Breland and Khyber, although in a few other places. It is also this big building here. There's a really big building. It's the House Thrashk Dragon Shard refinery. So it is also a center for one of the houses. And then Southwatch is a little more diverse than that. You will encounter even some species from out in the jungle, drow and giants and others, as well as just pretty much every conceivable type of person in Southwatch, and it is right on the edge of the jungle. So a lot of expeditions come in and out through here. So I don't know, where do you guys think you live based on the stuff I gave you to read and just random press? It's not a life or death decision, but figure I'd let you guys take an opinion about it.
Southwatch would fit best for Esri. A little less hemmed in.
Yeah, Ari was going to say the same thing of like avoiding of doing as much as we can to avoid people who might potentially know who we are. Would probably be best. So a more diverse neighborhood, not filled with people from the place that we just left, would probably be ideal.
Aside from Southwatch having access to the wilds, which would be attractive, it's physically located farther from something from House Thrashk, and so that's going to be where I'm comfortable.
Okay. And I see Shade nodding.
Shade. Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons listed above,
Yeah.
and yes, the access to the wilds. This is
Cool.
great.
So you guys find lodging in Southwatch, probably in the neighborhood of Summerfield, which is a little bit more of a normal neighborhood. Grindstone to the north of it is pretty much locked down for expatriates from Karnath, and not an especially welcoming neighborhood for outsiders. Not exactly hostile, but you get stared at if they don't know you there. So you probably find yourselves in Summerfield. So let's talk about the place you are living, your lodging situation. So I have some suggestions of some storm-reachy places you might find lodging in. So here are some suggestions you guys can pick, or you can propose something entirely different. Summerfield's right on the river. You could live on a derelict ship moored in the river. You could live on a ruin, on a bit of floating rubble above the roofs of the city. You could live under the city in a subterranean chamber off of one of the lower levels of the ruins. You could go classic and have just an apartment above a shop. Or you could live, since it is close enough to the wood, that the wood infringes is the wrong word. You get a little more trees. Incurs. There we go. The wood incurs a little bit on the city here. You could also live in like a rickety tree house in a big jungle tree of some kind. So what do we think, gang? Where are we living? What's the...
That would be awesome if we didn't have Termite Man with us. I feel like I would always be concerned that there would be like a chalk outline of my body's sleeping area just waiting for a couple of the timely gnaws to send me through it.
He has some control over
I
it.
maintain a well-ordered small colony. They only need to eat a little bit at a time. I wouldn't do it at home.
Do they live in the magic stick?
They do. In fact, that's the thing. Every so often, Esri has to procure a new stick because it is constantly being decayed by the mushrooms he's growing and the parasites he's hosting.
Mm-hmm.
As you do.
At some point,
Yeah.
it becomes less good of a hitting stick.
And then you just hand it to Wog to use as kindling to start the next campfire. Because you refuse to do the Boy Scouting.
Well, what do we think, gang?
Well, Shade
Seem-
loves the idea of a treehouse.
Yeah,
But-
treehouse is pretty.
Feel that
I'm on
Pretty
board
prime.
with treehouse or rubble. Either. I don't want to go under. That's for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of stink face. Up
I
there.
noticed that. I noticed that nobody liked that idea.
Hugely against that. You'll notice that Philip said between Cross and Summerfield, not life or death, and then he listed the options of where and there we could stay, and did not give the same disclaimer. He just discussed the nightmare aquatic people and was like, you could stay down under the city if you'd like. Not today, Satan.
Oh yeah, the ruins extend out into the harbor, like underwater, like the ruins go underwater, and those ruins are lived in by Sawagain, who have a diplomatic relationship with the city.
Listen, before we set roots here, can we move again? Do we have to be here?
Did I not mention the cannibalistic shark people when...
How did this make none of the messages? This is horrible. I'm against it.
Ari would be fine with the treehouse. He would not be okay with the boat, and he would not be okay with underground. He's had enough boats for one lifetime, and
Agreed.
yeah.
All right. Sounds like it's
I feel like
Treehouse.
Treehouse is the safest option from the Piranha people.
That's fair. Treehouse it is. All right. So you all are helped to get... Ownership is maybe not the right word, but a lease on a... It might have been nice once. Like probably someone well off built it because, you imagine building a livable house in a tree, and you kind of imagine there's some means that went into that. But whoever that person was hasn't lived there in a long time, and it's kind of falling to pieces, but just a large tree in the midst of a plaza in Summerfield with big branches that sort of sweep almost straight out, and in those branches have been placed a platform and some basic plank walls and a bit of a roof. The tree, of course, and the branches grow all like through the rooms in the treehouse, such as it has rooms. And so it's a lot like being up in the branches of a tree. Like you're not able to forget that, but it is enclosed, and it is more or less rainproof.
So we do have a legal claim
Yes.
on this
Yes.
dwelling? We're not squatting?
Right.
Okay.
And that brings us to the other question. How did you get that? Because you arrived broke. So somebody helped you to this. A faction of some kind helped you to this. So I provided you guys with a list of likely factions you might encounter in Cross and Southwatch. So within Southwatch, the biggest power in the region is a militia called the Swords of Karn, who are mostly made up of veterans of the war, and they believe that their leader, Drago Thul, is the man to reunite the fallen kingdom of Galifar. And so they are people who are disappointed that the war ended, is sort of the quality of people that we're talking about here. They are soldiers, and very loyal to their leader. And they are based in Grindstone to the north, which is their stronghold. But there are others. There are gangs. You encounter the Titans that are mostly made of giants and half-giants and Goliaths and ogres, and are sort of a muscle for hire gang in the area. I sent you a list. There's no reason for me to read all of the list. Did any of the factions intrigue anyone that you would be comfortable being in their debt? Because that's where this is going. Who are you indebted to for your living situation?
Well, it ties into what we had discussed as my mundane job. I have been working with the Swords of Karn, kind of a barback kind of a thing in one of their local hangouts, doing jobs and tasks for them, be it squirely duties, things needed to be carried, loaded, and unloaded. So that could be an option for how we were connected.
Okay. Anyone have other thoughts, or we want to go with that?
Well, someone in particular cost us our rent money on the trip over.
How y'all doing?
So there may be a need to take on a debt of, on a certain
So it's his name on the lease. is what you're
signatory.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay. No co-signers. It's just Ari.
All right, so we're going with Swords of Karn.
Jade is fine with that because, similarly, the idea of leasing a tree is completely foreign to her.
Sure.
Like, she would have been like, or we could just get the perfectly good tree.
It's a tree.
Several, right.
Right.
Just we can go claim one.
Yeah, I'm fine with Swords of Karn,
Okay. So
and I'm
you-
fine with being the signatory. Whatever. I got the credit score of a ghost.
So you all are indebted then to the Swords of Karn, and that will be something that will be dealt with occasionally. They don't really come around collecting rent much because this is not so much you're renting it from them. It's no. We've given it to you. You just owe us. That's okay. You can just owe us. And so that's
Like that.
That's where you are in.
That's where you are, Ari. That's where you are. Let's remember here.
So
Philip, I have a whisper of a thing that is relevant to what we're talking about now.
Sure.
How do we want to handle that in this setup?
you have a whisper of a thing.
I have something that I want to ask you that I don't want to ask out loud to the group.
Oh, I see.
We can all.
I can
This is the
headphone
first time
off.
this has come up.
Yeah.
Do you
I
want?
can headphone off and not hear anything.
Well, do you want the list?
My wife can't.
Do you want
I
the
can leave the
viewers to
room.
hear?
Do you want the viewers to hear?
No,
or you just
I
don't
can-
want the other players to hear.
Well, this is what I'm asking. How do we want to handle it? Because I can just type it to you. Or
I don't have a problem with the listeners have now heard this conversation, so we should probably let the listeners hear
Sure.
Hear the payoff of it.
okay.
Okay, for me and Colin,
leave
the
the room.
speaker icon down there. Oh wait, no, never mind. I thought you could mute your or deafen yourself, but you
I'm
can't.
just taking my cans off
Okay.
and turning the volume down on the
All right,
side.
yeah.
Honor system here.
Cool.
So, Philip, do like
Yeah,
a silly
I'll
wave or
wave
something
when it's
you're
time to
ready
come
for
back.
me.
Cool. All right,
Okay.
go.
I guess. Hold on. For anyone who hasn't figured it out yet, we're in the same
There
room.
you go.
So Esri would have felt compelled to try to hold on to one of the medals
Okay.
and secret it away, such because he, unlike apparently the rest of the group, does not necessarily believe that he was betrayed by Soren.
Okay.
And so I don't know how if we could just declare
That's fine.
that, or
Yeah,
if you
I
want
don't have a problem
to
with
try to hide it.
Yeah,
or
I don't have a problem with just declaring
All
that
right.
you have secreted away one of the medals that Dane gave you. Yeah, that's fine. Cool.
All right.
I like that. All right. All right.
Oh, hello there.
Hello.
Semaphore.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what.
I don't know either.
Now, quick.
Now we have to make sure that we don't listen
you have to have flags,
when we
right?
listen back to this episode.
Yeah, you'll have to mute. Yeah.
A quick programming question though. Did that have to do with Esri's secret
No.
that we weren't? Okay,
Nope.
because I know we didn't want the listeners to know those things. So
Nope, did not. All right. So, you have made it to Stormreach. You have found lodging, and you are indebted to a paramilitary organization. Congratulations! Hooray!
Yay.
Great.
This is going so well for us, you guys.
And I think that's probably a good spot to wrap up this episode. And so we'll
Another action-packed episode.
we'll pick up with your actual lives in Stormreach next time. So until next time, This has been Khyber Shards. If you want to hear more, because I see the look on Eric's face, if you want to know more about us and stuff, Eric, shill.
Got to do the plugs, Philip.
All right, you do them.
Please be sure, if you are enjoying this show, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It does help immensely. And also let us know what you think down below. Leave a comment on what you thought about the shenanigans and who had the worst trouble. Who presented the worst bit of trouble on our journey? Let us know down below. We also...
Yeah, who could that have been?
Yeah. If
Way to
you would
plug
like
for
to
yourself in comments there.
If you would like to interact with us and members of our community in a more real-time capacity, we do have a Discord that the link is down there where you can go click on that and join our Discord server. It's a lot of fun. We talk about not just the shows that we do, but D&D in general and movies and food and pets and all. If you want pet pictures, we got pet pictures.
So many cute ones.
Yes. We also have an Instagram and a Twitter at the Geek Pantheon and a Facebook group where you can search the Geek Pantheon on there and join our Facebook group. And lastly, twitch.tv/the Geek Pantheon. I stream every Sunday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central and Saturdays at 7 a.m. If you want to talk D&D over there, I would love to have you.
You can
and
also see Colin stream.
Yeah, I am on Twitter and Instagram at SorryBTR and twitch.tv/SorryBTR. The O is a 0.
All right. Well, now, this has been Khyber Shards. I'm Philip.
I'm Eric.
I'm Colin.
And I'm Casey.
See you next time.
We're going to get this.
Huzzah!
You're muted.